Hey friends, so today we will be discussing Alright, hey friends, today we're discussing Plan Dalet. Plan Dalet is something that is often used as evidence that the Zionists were in fact aiming to ethnically cleanse Palestine of the native and indigenous people that were living there. So I was very curious about this because I just want to learn more, and I want to dig into the nuance and unlock. I like this idea of unlocking nuance. So I want to unlock as much as I can, not for the sake of having a nuanced position, but for the sake of, of course, getting closer to the truth, sort of what was happening, because I am genuinely curious and fascinated with this topic. One of the most contested issues, I think, in the modern era, the Israel-Palestine conflict. So enough about what brought me here. Let's try to understand what this is slowly and make our way through this. So the Plan Dalet is, in Hebrew, Tokhnit Dalet. It was a Zionist military plan executed during the 48 Palestine War for the conquest of territory in Mandatory Palestine. Okay? So Mandatory Palestine, of course, is the entity, the legal entity that was administering this region, the highly contested region of Palestine. The Zionists were the predominant, or it was the, predominant ideology behind the Jews who were migrating to Palestine to establish a nation, right? And a military plan, of course, is something that militaries do. All militaries will have plans, multiple plans. Plan A, and then if Plan A goes wrong, we'll have Plan B, and if C goes wrong, we'll have Plan D, and that's ultimately what this is, because I think D is the third letter. It's like Plan D. It's like one of the plans, one of the contingents, I guess. But I don't know. Let's keep reading. The plan was the blueprint for Israel's military operations starting in March of 48. So March of 48. Until the end of the war in early 49. So early 40, that's many months. Let's see, it's 9 months. That's what this is saying. So Dalet was the plan that was controlling from March 48 for 9 months all the way to early 49. And it played a central role in the 48 Palestinian expulsion and flight, aka Nakba. So Nakba, of course, is the foundational myth. Myth could be offensive to some people. It's the foundational story, it's the foundational narrative, the foundational event from the Palestinian side, from the oppressed Palestinian angle, right? So that's why I'm interested in this, because this is, right, played a central role in Nakba. And Nakba is a foundational part of the the oppressed Palestinian narrative. Okay, and that's why I'm curious. So let's keep going. Let's keep reading. So the plan was requested by the Jewish Agency leader and later first Prime Minister of Israel, David Ben-Gurion. So as you know, Israel has a parliamentary system where there's different there are different parties. Parties can form blocks and so on. The whole idea in these kind of Westminster parliament systems is to build a coalition. The coalition has a prime minister. In Israel's case, it was David Grun or David Ben-Gurion. He changed his name to a more Hebrew, I guess, name. But the plan was requested by this Jewish agency. And I don't know what the Jewish agency is, so we're going to click in for a second and see, get a quick little refresher. So the Jewish Agency for Israel, Tokhnit Yehudit La'eretz Israel. Formerly known as the Jewish Agency, is the largest Jewish non-profit organization in the world. Okay, this is important. I wasn't sure where this. So it was established in 29 as the operative branch of the WZO. Okay. And of course, let's go click in one more. The WZO was, the World Zionist Organization is an NGO that promotes Zionism. Okay, the chief ideology that instigated, led, it was the platform for the discourse that would lead to Israel, right? So, hold on. So it's an NGO that promotes Zionism, and it was founded as the Zionist organization, the ZO, at the initiative of none other than Theodor Herzl at the first Zionist Congress. So they have this Congress, and they create, of course, a framework, companies, in this case an NGO, the World Zionist Organization, and they need to, have operations, right? And the operations, the actions that are done are delegated, I guess, to this Jewish agency. Interesting. Where is it? So it's headquartered in Jerusalem these days. It's a 501c3, which is that international designation, or is that something in Israel? I don't know. For the sake of this sort of episode, I'm going to return to Dalet because that's where we were. But there's more to read there, and it's not clear to me why this still exists. I understand why it existed, but the fact that I'm seeing it still around is strange to me. I feel like the Zionists have succeeded, right? There's a state. I don't know why it needs to still be around, but let's keep reading. So the plan was requested by the Jewish Agency, right? It's kind of like the COO, the Chief of Operations of the Zionist organization, and later first Prime Minister David Ben-Gurion, and developed by the Haganah, and finalized on March 10, 1948. So Haganah, just to refresh, the Haganah, or the defense, was the main Zionist paramilitary organization that operated for the Yeshuv in the British Mandate of Palestine. So it was the main paramilitary organization. And then one more, because I mean, if I'm already getting bogged down with like the first sentence, I'm gonna check it out. So Yeshuv is literally the Jewish settlement in the land of Israel. It was the community of Jews residing in Palestine prior to the establishment of the state. Okay? That was just, I'm reading like literally the first sentences just to understand what's going on. So, we have, it was developed by Haganah, the leading paramilitary organization that that was in the Yeshuv, okay? And it was finalized in March 10. So of course, it makes sense that the Haganah would develop it because Ben-Gurion is a politician, not a military strategist. So the Haganah is the predominant paramilitary organization. They developed this plan, this military plan. Historians describe Plan Dalet as the beginning of a new phase in the 48 Palestine War, in which Zionist forces shifted to an offensive strategy. Interesting. Okay. The plan was a set of guidelines to take control of Mandatory Palestine, declare a Jewish state, and defend its borders and peoples, including the Jewish population outside of the borders, before and anticipation of the invasion by regular Arab armies. Interesting. So I am curious. So at the time of Israel's founding, of course, there were regular Arab armies at the borders. I know that for sure Syria was a country, like was in a independent state with a military. I know this because their independence was in 46. I just did a video about that, and my goldfish memory still has retained that fact. So that's one for sure. It's a regular Arab army that isn't going to be pleased with the Zionists declaring independence and assuming control over land, basically in Palestine. Okay? They're not going to be pleased with this, to say the least, and without getting into the details of it. So they are already anticipating this invasion. They want to defend the borders. They want to, let's keep reading. It's a military plan to defend themselves, defend the people, the land, and they're also anticipating an invasion. Dalet specifically included gaining control of areas wherever the Yeshuv population existed, including those outside the borders of the proposed Jewish states. This is interesting. Yeshuv, we just said, is where the Jews were living, the settlement of Jews prior to the Israeli Independence Day. But it's interesting that they're planning to take not only Yeshuv, but anything in the Yeshuv, even if it's outside of proposed Jewish state. I'm assuming the proposed Jewish state is what the UN recommended in the UN partition plan. All right. The plan's tactics involved laying siege to Palestinian Arab villages, bombing neighborhoods of cities, forced expulsion of their inhabitants, and setting fields and houses on fire and detonating TNT in the rubble to prevent any return. Okay, pretty straightforward military action. Zionist military units possessed detailed lists of neighborhoods and villages to be destroyed and their Arab inhabitants expelled. So they did a lot of reconnaissance, and they have all of their intelligence. They've gathered intelligence. One of the first and most well-known operations of Plan Dalet was Deir Yassin Massacre. So this was interesting. Okay, so I didn't know that. I didn't know that this was connected to Dalet, that was connected. So let's click in, because of course, unless we're gonna get there. Are we gonna get there? Maybe we will. I'm assuming, because I think, I mean, I've heard of Deir Yassin. It was a very it was a horrific massacre, right? Can I say horrific? Yeah, many people were killed by the at that point I guess it's a military, right? Because they've established themselves as a state at this point. Okay, so let's just click in for a second. So the Deir Yassin, I'm just going to read the first sentence. The Deir Yassin massacre took place April, right? Which aligns with our timeline. March, April, 48, when Zionist paramilitaries attacked the village of Deir Yassin, near Jerusalem, then part of Mandatory Palestine, killing at least 107 Palestinian Arab villagers, including women and children. So, horrific kind of attack on Palestinians. So, moving on. This strategy is subject to controversy, with some historians characterizing it as defensive, while others assert that it was an integral part of a planned strategy for the expulsion, sometimes called an ethnic cleansing of the area's native inhabitants. Okay, so let's get into it. Etymology. So its name comes from the letter Dalet, the fourth letter in the Hebrew alphabet after Aleph, Bet, Gimel. The background. So it's the summer of 37. The commander of the forces in the Tel Aviv area, Elimelech Slikowitz, nicknamed Avner, receives an order from Ben-Gurion, according to the official history of the Haganah. Ben-Gurion anticipated an eventual British withdrawal from the country. So it's 37, that's 3... See, this is like a decade. This is a decade before, more than a decade before before the Independence Day, the independence of Israel. So Ben-Gurion anticipated an eventual British withdrawal from the country after the Peel Report. Let's click in for a second and see what that is, the Peel Report, or the Peel Commission. So the Peel Commission, formerly known as the Palestine Royal Commission, was a British Royal Commission. Not really sure what a commission is. Let's check it out. Sorry, one more. So a Royal Commission is a major, ad hoc, formal, public inquiry into a defined issue in some monarchies. It's very, I love that. I love how organized and bureaucratic the British were. So they would have these things called the Royal Commissions, and it was a public inquiry. I bet some gentlemen in Britain were very curious about certain matters, and they do a commission to resolve and conclude the inquiry. So the Peel Commission was a royal commission of inquiry headed by Lord Peel, appointed in 1936. Okay, so this is almost more than a decade before the founding of Israel, the state of Israel, to investigate the causes of conflict in Mandatory Palestine, which was at that time administered by the United Kingdom, following a 6-month-long Arab general strike. Interesting. This was one sentence, by the way, and I already don't know what this is. So I guess I need to click in. Yeah, I have to click in. I don't know what the hell this is. So the Arab general strike was a general strike. I think we know what that is. We all know what that is. That is when you respectfully do not show up at work and do not participate in the economy for some sort of like some sort of cause, right? Usually, probably it usually has to do with like a class struggle. I would assume something class, something that has to do with the class struggle. Like you're not getting paid enough, you don't have enough rights, you don't have something. But not limited to class. It can also be, I guess, political, right? So people can just maybe not participate in the economy if they don't like what their government is doing. So a general strike involving many Arabs in Mandatory Palestine, encompassing labor, transportation, and commercial activities, and it commenced April 1936, extending until October of the same year. Interesting. Bothers me is I have to keep reading because I don't know what it's about. The strike escalated into violence, marking the onset of the 36-39 Arab Revolt in Palestine. These strikes represented a component of the undocumented, detailed civilian resistance carried out by the Palestinian population, with the majority of them not directly participating in the warfare against the colonial government. So this is about, like, I don't know, I actually can't make anything of this because it's not clear to me what they're protesting. Is it towards the Zionists or is it towards the British administration? I don't know. Let's ChatGPT this. So let's go. Here, not this. Let's ChatGPT. So actually, I want to go just linger on this page. What? What did the Arabs strike about? For what cause? Yeah, kind of badly worded question, but I'm sure ChatGPT can handle it. Of course, it's ChatGPT, right? And everything can be wrong. The Arab General Strike of 36 was a mass protest by Palestinian Arabs in Mandatory Palestine, lasted about 6 months, and was the opening phase of this is literally ChatGPT. This is literally like what I read here in the Wikipedia. Very simply, 3 demands. I wonder if it would say that here. Oh, it does say it right here. Yeah, let's. I think this is important. I'm gonna get into this. So, the strike began 20 April. We're in the timeline section of the general strike. So the strike begins 20 April in Nablus, which is in right now the occupied West Bank, where an Arab National Committee was formed. And by the end of the month, national committees had been formed in all of the towns and some of the larger villages. So they created an Arab National Committee, ANC. And by the end of the month it had formed in many of the towns and villages, including all of these places. On 21 April, the leader of the 5 main parties accepted the decision and called for a general strike of all laborers, following what we outlined earlier. The strike was initially organized by workers and local committees, religious leaders, influential families. Okay, so it's kind of was classless. It seems like we have all classes. We have the working class, we have the capitalist class as well. This leads to the formation on 25 April of the Arab Higher Committee. And under the chairman Amin al-Husseini. Amin al-Husseini. This is another important figure in early Zionist Palestinian kind of history, right? Amin al-Husseini. The committee resolved to continue the general strike. Where were we? Sorry. Until the British government changes its present policy in a fundamental manner. So they want to pressure the government, the British government. They do succeed because it, I guess, draws attention to the mandate, such that there's a formal commission, like a royal commission, the Peel Commission. So let's see what the demands of the committee include. 1. The prohibition of Jewish immigration. Interesting. So they already, 10 years before, were like, we don't want Jewish immigration. Fair. That's fair, right? It's like a fair request, right? They're living there, and they don't want Jews immigrating there. You don't have to agree, but it's fair that they would have that, I guess, position. 2. The prohibition of the transfer of Arab land to Jews. 3. The establishment of a national government responsible to a representative council. On 15 May of 36, the committee endorsed the general strike, calling for an end of Jewish immigration. Interesting. So they're not paying taxes. I guess that's a problem, right? That's a huge problem. And the response of the British to the strike was to impose heavy fines on the villages and cities. The city port of Jaffa was especially singled out. Under the guise of urban renewal, the British ordered the demolition of hundreds of homes in the city and more than 1,000 neighboring villages. Interesting. Man. So they're trying to quell this resistance from the natives, the indigenous population, and they start to demolish houses, according to this Wikipedia entry. The British also authorized the building of a port in neighboring Tel Aviv to compete with the strike-bound port of Jaffa. Classic. So they've had a strike. They just build another port that they can work with. Okay, we've gone too far into this, and I'm going to return us home to the original link. So yeah, check out the Peel Commission. So the Peel Commission was administered by the United Kingdom following a 6-month-long Arab strike. So on July 7, 1937, the Commission published the report that for the first time stated that the League Nations mandate had become unworkable and recommended the partition. Excellent. Basically, it seems like if you create enough of a ruckus in a British colony, they at some point say enough. You guys get what you want. We're gonna do something about it, but they go about it in a way that's very British, right? They make a formal. They do this royal commission. They write a report. They try with the best of their rationale to. And I'm sure there's lobbying here as well, right? On these issues. I'm sure. But yeah, so they recommend this partition. The British cabinet endorsed the partition plan in principle, but requested more information following the publication in the Woodhouse Commission. Woodhead Commission, rather. Okay, so we're still straying from the original, but maybe I will ask, because okay, let's keep reading. So Ben Gurion, anticipating an eventual British withdrawal from the country after the Peel Report, which makes sense with what we read. The Peel Report found that Palestine was unworkable, so it's logical to assume that they would withdraw. So Ben Gurion asks this guy, Eli Melech Silkowitz, to prepare a plan for the military conquest of the whole of Palestine. Interesting, because that really does sound bad. Like, it sounds terrible. I mean, terrible from my perspective, because, I mean, if anything, the binational sort of Hannah Arendt style Zionism, I think, was the most legitimate form of any type of Zionism. And this kind of negates my position on Zionism, personally. You guys didn't ask for it, but anyways, this Avenir plan proved a blueprint for future plans. The blueprint was refined in subsequent adjustments. A, B, and C, before emerging as the final form over a decade later, Plan D. So they basically like refine it. It's like version 1, version 2, version 3. It's not really like contingents, I think. I think it's like version numbers. I don't know. That's what it seems to me right now. Oh, okay. So we're going to get into it. So the 4 adjustments. We're making our way. So here, I'm going to do a pause right now and get some water.